Hello. Well, this is really dark. Hang on one second. Hello, friends. I'm going to rant in just a few moments. Okay. Yeah, hi. So, as many of you know, I just went on a big meditation retreat thingy-majig. And yeah, I'm gonna, go talk about that for a while. So if you want to tune in and, listen to me talk about meditation and mindfulness stuff for a while, that's what we're gonna do. And I only have about an hour and a quarter, so if there's more than what we get to today, then I'll do it again sometime tomorrow or something. We'll see. But hopefully I'll get through most of it today, because it is really interesting and all that. And of course I'll play some music as we go, because that's also really fun. So to kind of give a brief outline, there's a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about. I got a bunch of notes here. Woo! But to give a brief outline, first I'll tell you guys about, actually, what was I going to start with? Oh yeah, first I'll tell you about, my history of meditation, what got me interested in this kind of thing. I'll talk about the course itself, what you do, and that sort of thing. And then after that, I'll talk about my own experience with the course, and finally I'll close with some advice and that sort of thing. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. If anyone has any questions, now or later, just drop me a line. Happy to answer anything. So I'll lead off by saying this was for sure the hardest, most rewarding thing I've ever done. Hardest, maybe not the best quality that you think of, but most rewarding, definitely a good quality. But yeah, so it was really profound in that regard. Yeah. So to begin, I mentioned I'm going to talk about my own history with meditation. So I've been meditating about a year and a half by now. I started in December 2016. To back up a minute, as I'm going through all this, if you guys find you relate or just anything, I encourage you to observe sensations in your own body and of your own breath throughout this whole thing. Just see how you react to what I'm saying. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. Maybe something will hit you really hard, right on the shoulder, and you won't really understand why. But yeah, so try to pay attention to that, and I'll remind you to do that every now and again. Anyway, yeah, so my history of meditation. So yeah, I had this big existential crisis in Thanksgiving of 2016, and I was contemplating my own death and what is all this life? What are we all doing here? What is this money stuff? This is all nonsense. I was so angry at everything. Oh man, it was awful. And so I was in therapy at the time, and so I talked to my therapist, and I'm like, hey, what's this death thing? We're all gonna die. This sucks. And eventually we talked about it for a little while, and eventually I said, oh, I'm kind of sorry for bringing this up. Because I know this will affect you too, and I don't want to bring that vibe to you. And he's like, it's fine. So we were talking for a while, and he said, it's kind of a hole that you can go into. Your mind goes into this hole, oh, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna suffer, it's all gonna be bad. And so your mind goes into this hole, and it's really dark down there. It's really devastating. You don't know what to do. It's awful. But he told me you can climb out of the hole. And you can, it doesn't bother you to be put into a hole if you know how to climb out. And, you could just enjoy, oh, there's a hole there, and, I'll go in, and then I'll go out. Metaphorical hole, obviously. But, yeah, and so I asked him, well, how do you do this climbing in and out of these holes? How do you deal with that? And he told me he meditates. And so I'm like, oh, what's this meditation thing? And so he told me about it, and so the point is to, at least for him, is to observe sensations as they arise naturally, remaining with perfect equanimity, meaning not reacting, and letting them come, rise, and pass. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's really what started my journey on this meditation path. So he gave me a couple book recommendations. I started a kind of small practice, I guess. I'd meditate every, most days, I think I would meditate for maybe 10 minutes. When you start out, it's really hard to devote hour a day, 2 hours a day. That's nonsense. You'll never enjoy meditation if you start out by trying to do that much. But the book that I started with is a book called 8-Minute Meditation, and so it's kind of what it sounds like. It gives you guidelines for these short, simple meditations, and if you do it every day, you kind of eventually get the point and develop a practice around it. Let me just see. Yeah, and so I meditated most of the year in 2017. But at first my practice wasn't that serious, to be honest. I kind of knew it would benefit me in some abstract, far away, meditation helps people, maybe it'll help me. And to a degree I could feel it helping me, cope with things like anxiety, depression, which I've struggled with for a long time. But there's kind of different levels of wisdom and knowing, and we'll come back to those in a little while. But if you really want to benefit from it, you should know the benefits on the experiential level. You experience the benefits, and that's why you do it. You don't just hear, oh, meditation's good, therefore I'll do it. Or these people, they seem pretty smart, and they meditate, and they say that it's great. But this doesn't matter, because unless you meditate and unless you feel the benefits of it, that's when you know that it's beneficial to you. You can read about it all you want, and you can hear other people talk about it all you want, but it has to be experienced, like most of the things that I'll tell you about here. I'm just going to lay something down here. Anyway, yeah, so my practice was not that serious for a while. I would do 10 minutes a day for a while. I wouldn't really care if I missed a day. So that kind of went throughout the year, and I practiced pretty regularly. There weren't really any periods in there when I just didn't meditate, which was good. Continuity of practice is the secret to success, as my teacher says. But once I came to Colorado in August in 2017, and I came to the Colorado School Minds, one of the only student group I'm in actually is called the Organization of Meditators at Minds, and so they host guided sessions every week. And there's also a program in the library that hosts guided sessions. Side note, if you want to start meditating, definitely check out guided sessions. It's a lot easier, I think, to do that than to meditate on your own. But this made my practice a lot more serious, because I began to really experience wow, that was a great session, and the rest of my day would be wonderful. I'd feel so in tune with my body. I'd feel so relaxed and all these great things. And so I really began to experience the benefits of meditation once I started going to these guided sessions in Colorado, and I really enjoyed all that. And this really brought my practice to be a lot more serious. So I probably have missed less than 5 days since August. And the amount of time I would meditate every day increased. I would normally just do one session in the morning. That became 2, one in the morning, one before I go to bed. I moved from 10 minutes to 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes for a while. And I just kept doing it, you really just have to keep doing it. I've read like a million books on meditation by now, which is always really cool. But most of what I was doing is called Anapana meditation, which is single point of focus on the breath. And actually, I can just lead a very brief Anapana for you guys right now, just to give you an idea. And we'll just spend 2 minutes on this. But see if you can feel what I described. So I would recommend you close your eyes for a moment and allow your breathing to just settle out. Let it be natural. Breathe however your breath wants to breathe. And at the area of the opening of the nostrils, see if you can observe breath going in, breath going out. Breath going in, breath going out. And it's as simple as that. Just try to observe the breath. Don't worry about thoughts. Naturally you'll get distracted, but just come back to the breath. Breath going in, breath going out. And do that for a minute or two, and then we'll continue. I'm going to read some observe, is it through the left nostril? Is it through the right nostril? Is it strong? Is it weak? Is it long? Is it short? And of course, you'll notice yourself get distracted, but don't worry about the distraction. Just keep your focus and your attention the area of the opening of the nostrils. Breath going in, breath going out. Okay, I do have a lot to talk about, so we're going to end that. But, so, maybe you can feel something there, and if you can, that's great. And so, for a while, that's kind of what you do. Like, you just feel breath going in, breath going out, breath going in, breath going out, thoughts, thoughts! Breath going in, breath going out. You know, you get distracted naturally. It just happens. Happens again and again and again. But the point isn't to worry about that. The point is to just breath going in, breath going out, breath going in, breath going out. So, yeah, okay, so that was my meditation for practice for a while through the Organization of Meditators at Minds. The acronym for that is OM, by the way. It's not just a silly name. But I met some really great enlightened people. The guy who runs it, Serge, one of my close friends, like, really relaxed, fantastic guy. And I also met this girl, Delaney, who had been on a Vipassana last year. And so it's funny, my first impression of her is like, wow, this girl is so positive, like, she's great, she's incredible, because she always seems so happy, she's always smiling, etc. And so thinking about it, I was like, how can someone be like that? And I think the only answer is you purify your mind. You know, you purify the negativity, you get it somewhere else, and then you just are able to live your own life in peace, positively, happily, you know? So I was really happy to meet these people, especially Delaney, because she told me about the Vipassana and how that was like a big thing for her. So I read about the Vipassana, and what Vipassana is it's a meditation technique that's often called or translated as body scanning. And so I've been to some guided sessions where we do body scans. So basically, instead of doing just breath going in, breath going out at the nose, what you're doing is moving your attention part by part, piece by piece, all over the body, just feeling whatever sensation is there. And I'd done this a couple times, and so when I was reading it, it said, like, Vipassana is a technique that will eradicate all suffering, and and get rid of all pain, and will purify the minds. And I'm thinking of my own experience with this, like, here, and I'm like, no way! There's no way you can just, like, purify the mind, like, at first I was very doubtful. But as we go on, I'll go more into it. The technique is, it gets a lot more complicated as you go into it. But we'll get there, though. But yeah, so Vipassana technique to purify the mind. And so if you want a pure mind, you want to be happy all the time. Actually, that's not even the point. The point isn't even to be happy all the time. The point is to be okay with things all the time. And I think I've realized that a lot more, you know? Is to maintain that equanimity as much as you can. Okay, so that kind of leads me to the course itself. So I'll talk about that. So Delaney and I went down. This was her second retreat. This was my first. We drove down together. It's a long drive. So actually, just backing up, if you want information on Vipassana retreats and meditations and all that, the website is dhamma.org. That's DHAMMA.org. And so you can read about all this stuff there. I mean, you can ask me too, and I'll give you everything I know. But if you want to read about it, yeah. Okay, so there's centers all over the world. It's not sectarian, although it's heavily Buddhist influenced, which you might expect. But there's courses kind of all over. You know, they're pretty common. Well, I don't know if common is the right word. There's about 10 centers in the United States. You don't have to do it at a center, but it's kind of better to, because you live on site. You know, you live next to all these other people who are meditating, all on the same schedule as you, and doing all that. And so, if you're a new student, I'm pretty sure the only option you have is to do a 10-day course. If you're an old student, you can do like a 20-day course. There's a 45-day course and I think a 60-day course as well. And if I ever have that kind of time, maybe I'll think about doing it, but like 60 days of meditating 12 hours a day just on like a little farm, just like, what? That's crazy, man. But no, but you start with a 10-day course. And so what the 10-day course is it's basically a silent retreat in the middle of nowhere. I did mine in, the center is right outside Dallas, Texas. That's actually the closest one to Denver. So it's a pretty long drive. It's about 1,000 miles. We stopped in Amarillo on the way down, stayed over at like an Airbnb, and yeah, and it was cool. The drive was like pretty okay. We picked up another student. They like coordinate ride sharing and stuff. We picked up another student in New Mexico, and she was going on her 5th course. And I was like, wow, this girl must be feeling things like that I can't even imagine, you know, because just like the development of sensations everywhere is so significant. Anyway, going back, the course itself, you are in what's called noble silence. So that's silence of speech, obviously, but it also means you can't look at people, like you can't make eye contact, and you can't touch people. That's a very big thing, because for the whole of the 10 days, you know, it's basically completely silent. You can talk to the teacher and like ask questions, and like there's a residential manager, so if you need something or if you have a problem, like it gets settled. But you don't talk to the other students. And the idea is you're working in isolation, you're working on yourself, for yourself, etc. And it's really difficult. There's no technology allowed whatsoever, so like don't expect to be on your phone. In fact, they don't really let you have books or writing materials or any of that too, because this is not the point. You're not there to write about what you're feeling or to read about what other people felt. You're there to feel what you're feeling as you're feeling it. That's, I mean, it sounds obvious, but that's a big thing. So no books and no technology. I felt bad for just having a watch. You know, this was the most technologically advanced thing I had. But it's good to keep time. While I'm on that matter, actually, I may as well tell you guys the schedule. So 10-day course, every day, there's a wake-up bell at 4 a.m., nice early hour. At 4:30, you go to the well, you could... at 4:30, I would go to the meditation hall every day. It's this big building with a big space inside where everyone meditates. But you could also meditate in your room if you want. You meditate from 4:30 to 6:30, which is a really wild feeling because you get out of the hall at 6:30. You've been meditating for 2 hours, and the sun still isn't even up. It's like pitch dark outside still, and it's like, wow. It's stressful, man. Those were like, the early morning sessions were my hardest ones for sure. It's so hard to stay motivated that early. It's so hard to like just keep your intention strong and like not fall asleep all the time. But they recommend keeping the schedule as best you can. Obviously, it's hard to wake up at 4 every morning and like meditate 2 hours and not get exhausted. But that said, I was there every single morning, 4:30 to 6:30. I was like, they told me I should do this. I'm gonna do this. I want to make the most out of this. In a couple days, I would fall asleep, but not too many. Funny thing about that morning session is that about 5:55 a.m. until 6:30 a.m. the teacher chants in Pali or Hindi or some language that I cannot remotely understand. And the first like 6 days, I would hear the chanting come on and be like, because it's this like deep voice. It's like, you know, just saying random words that you have no idea for like 30 minutes. And you're trying to sit here concentrated, like, okay, I'm equanimous, I'm not reacting to anything, like, and this voice is, at first it's really annoying, okay? Nothing against the guy or the language or any of that, but it was so annoying. It made it so hard. What's up, dude?
Hi.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook Live, but you can come hang out if you want.
I've got work to do, but I'm cool just listening in the living room.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. My roommate just got home, in case you couldn't tell. Okay, yeah. So that's the schedule. So you wake up at 4, meditate 4:30 to 6:30. Then there's breakfast at 6:30. Breakfast was oatmeal and prunes every single day for 10 days straight. And by the 8th day, I cried about it. I was so, like, not down to keep eating oatmeal and prunes. Like, I could do that for maybe 4 days and be okay with it. But 10 days of oatmeal and prunes. I mean, and they would have, like, toast and stuff, too. But it was kind of in another area. And they had cereal, and that was in another area. And I was like, I'm just gonna eat the oatmeal, like, whatever. It's in the middle. It's, like, where they put the, you know. Oh, man. But that was that. So breakfast till like 7:15. Then you have a break 7:15 till 8 a.m. Then there's an hour session 8 to 9. Then 2-hour session 9 to 11. Lunch break at 11. 11 to like 11:30, 11:45. Then that break continues until 1 p.m. So I would usually sneak a nap in there and like get some rest. That was great. But yeah, so then another 75-minute session, 1 to 2:15, short break, hour session, 2:30 to 3:30, short break, and like 3:45 to 5. And so you only eat 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch, but at 5 there's a tea and fruit break. Actually, if you're an old student though, if you've done a course before, no fruit for you. But new students like me, we get to eat the fruit. You know, I never really got that hungry, to be honest. I think part of it is because you're just sitting down all day. You're not exerting yourself in any particular way. And the food was really good. It's very good vegetarian food and stuff. Dinner break 5 to 5:30, or fruit break 5 to 5:30. And then you get some time till 6. And then another hour session 6 to 7. Then 7 to about 8:30 there's a video recording of Going Kaji, the kind of originator of the course in modern life, I guess, the current teacher of the course, and he would give a discourse on topics in Buddhism and like the technique and talk about all sorts of cool stuff like that. You get to just relax, sit back, listen to this cool dude with a great sense of humor tell you about Buddha and like meditation and the nature of suffering, and we'll get to all that stuff. This is taking, I can already tell this is going to take way longer than the amount of time I had, so I'll get as far as I can, but we'll maybe do this again tomorrow or something, I don't know. But yeah, so then discourse till 8:30, then meditate till 9, then go home, go to sleep, wake up the next day at 4, same thing, start all over again. So you would sleep generally like 6 or 7 hours a night. It's amazing. I woke up before 4, no alarm, nothing, every single day. I think my mind was just in a really strange place. And actually, as you're doing these courses, everyone I talked to had the same experience as me. The dreams you have are oh God, they're bizarre, they're awful in many ways. Like, just the stuff that happens and the people and like, I was lucid dreaming for the first time in my life. Like, that was really strange, and I was experiencing just random things. I'll come back to this because, yeah, but like people from random different parts of my life that would never know or interact with each other would like be friends, and like I'd be hanging out with them and we'd be doing some bizarre thing that didn't make any sense. And I'd like would meet and know people and be friends with people that I had never seen or interacted with before. Dude, these dreams were just crazy. If you want strange dreams, go on a meditation retreat. I would not wish these dreams on anyone though. They were pretty unpleasant. I would wake up like covered in sweat, like, oh God, they were scary too. Like a lot. I died in a couple of them. Like, yeah, weird dreams. Okay, anyway, I got pretty off topic. So we're talking about the course and the format of the course. That's the schedule I just mentioned. No technology. And while you're there, you take 5 precepts. And so these are precepts that are kind of like guidelines on how to live, in a more or less healthy way. Because we'll come back to the theory of that. But the 5 precepts you take are you can't kill anything. So that includes like eating vegetarian and stuff, but by not killing anything, it also means like if there's an insect in your room, well, good luck. the only technology they did have were basically these cups with a little sheet of paper that you could put, the sheet of paper said insect removal device on it. So you take the cup, and then you pull it outside, set them free. I'm getting kind of tired of this thing. And so that's how you would deal with the insects. You would set them out. But you're not allowed to use these things for teleportation. You can't use them for time travel. Like no, that's against the rules. No technology. So don't kill anything. Don't squash the bug on your face or mosquito. You can't lie. This isn't very difficult because you also can't talk. But in case you could talk, I guess when you're talking to the teacher, don't lie. And this is actually a major thing in Buddhism, that you just should never lie, because it'll hurt you more than it'll hurt anyone else, actually. It's all about keeping that good moral conduct, That's what all these 5 precepts are about. Third precept, no sex, or no sexual activity of any kind. Men and women are separated, so not that hard to do, I think. You can't even touch anyone anyway, but a lot of these precepts, though, you're also supposed to observe in daily life, so you're not supposed to, do, I don't know. People can, you can observe whatever precepts you want to, but for the duration of the 10 days, though, no kill, no lie, no sex, no intoxicants of any kind. I don't know where you would, actually, this became a thing because, I came to the course with like a small cold, and I was taking acetaminophen and ibuprofen for a couple days just to like get over it. And by day 3, my cold had gone away, so I stopped taking the acetaminophen and ibuprofen and stuff. But I'll come back to it in a bit. But these meditations get kind of painful because you're sitting there cross-legged for like an hour straight, sometimes 2 hours, and that gets pretty painful. And so on day 4, my mind is telling me like, take some ibuprofen, just do it. Like, I'm in so much pain. But I would not let myself do it. I didn't take any. Because ibuprofen, relieves pain and stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't do it. But, if you had like any drug or alcohol, that it's obviously against the rules. And, it would be counterproductive to take any of that stuff anyway. Like, you're trying to go in, not out. That's kind of the point. Last precept, no steal. So no kill, no lie, no sex, no intoxicant, no steal. So you can't take anything that isn't yours. I don't even know what you would think about taking. But so when you're there, it's pretty easy to observe these precepts. But why do this in the first place? So why do this? So the silence is kind of to respect other students, as well as just kind of the overall feel of the place. Like, it is really quiet there. The only thing you could hear is probably just birds singing all the time, which is a really beautiful thing, actually. It's really great. And there's a lot of cows, because it's just right next to a farm. And cows are always going moo. Some of those cows sounded like they were in pain, man. I don't know if you've heard cows like really moo, but it's like pretty intense, man. They go crazy. But anyway, yes, so the silence, though, it's to kind of cultivate this introspection, this inward flow of energy. That's also why you can't touch anyone, because if you were to bump someone, and I did bump someone at one point, I felt awful, it completely throws off your direction of energy inward. That human touch, it really matters, especially when I mentioned the method is body scanning. You're feeling sensations all over your body constantly, all the time, even when you're not meditating. All of a sudden you touch someone, you feel it. You feel it really strong, and I bumped someone on like day 9, unfortunately. And I was thrown off balance for like 2 hours. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, my whole beat, I completely lost equanimity. It's actually really amazing how that works. The cultivation of this inward flow of energy is really strong. As far as the precepts go, and this will kind of start getting into the theory of meditation and that sort of thing. The precepts are to promote what's called sila. which is the first of three kind of important things in Buddhism that you need to cultivate. Sila is vaguely translated as living a good lifestyle. So if you want to live a healthy life, you should live a healthy lifestyle. And so to do that, no kill, no steal, no sex, no intoxicants, no, what was the last one? No lie. And I mentioned the no lying thing before. It's really important that you stay clean on all these things, basically, because if you do this with determination for long periods of time, what's bound to happen is you'll gain mastery over the mind, which is called samadhi, which is the second thing. Samadhi is mastery over the mind. You cultivate it by meditating and refining your focus and kind of getting your brain stronger. And as you do this, you gain more power to stay determined and do this and that. And you develop discipline. And so if you have mastery over the mind and you develop your mastery over the mind, from samadhi grows panya. And panya is translated as wisdom. And so what this wisdom is it's kind of the wisdom we were talking about before on the experiential level. So you literally, by living a healthy lifestyle and by controlling your mind, you gain wisdom as to the nature of your mind, you gain wisdom as to the nature of your life and your lifestyle, which the three then begin to support each other. So your lifestyle supports your mastery of the mind, and that supports your wisdom. And then your wisdom gives you more determination to stay master of your mind and to live your healthy lifestyle, etc. So the three grow together, but there is kind of a directional flow at first because you need to start with a healthy lifestyle, and then from there cultivate your mind, and then from there, only from there will the wisdom grow. If you don't have a fertile mind, you're never going to get any wisdom. So that's a big part of why you should go on one of these retreats, to practice it, to practice on the experiential level. I'm going to live healthy, be healthy mentally, and focus. And from that, you gain invaluable wisdom, which is kind of what I'll talk about throughout. Anyway, so other stuff before we continue. So the other things they recommend are that you completely surrender to the technique. So if you have a meditation practice prior, like I did, not everyone does. Some people go into these things with no experience. If you're interested in that, you can do it. I promise you can do it. You just got to stay motivated, really. Determination is what gets you through this. I mentioned it was, without exaggerating, this was for sure the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding. And what gets you through it is I can do this. I know I can do that, and you push yourself. Push yourself really freaking hard, but you can do it. Anyway, other stuff, completely surrender to the technique, so give up your other meditation practices, yoga, whatever. The point of this is also to just experience the technique in its purity, at least for the 10 days. After you leave, you are your own master, as they say. But during the 10 days, though, you're really there to learn the technique. You're not there to become enlightened. That's not going to happen in 10 days. But you're there to develop your discipline, your samadhi, gain wisdom genuinely from the technique, from your own samadhi through this technique. And that's why it's important that you don't practice anything else. And you completely surrender to the technique, the teacher, etc. You trust in these people that whatever happens, you'll make it through. You're not going to die or get hurt. The monk who's serving you breakfast isn't going to hurt you. He's just there to serve you breakfast. You have to trust in these things if you want to benefit from it, which isn't that hard to do. But it's important to not have doubt about that. You have to be confident that practicing this technique will help me if I just let myself. And it won't happen in one day. After about 3 days, you'll hate it. 4 days, you will feel dead. At least this is my experience. But eventually you kind of learn a lot through that, and we'll get to that later. The other thing they recommend you do is take refuge in what's called the triple gem. And this means taking refuge in the Buddha, in the Sangha, and in the Dharma. So the Buddha, taking refuge in the Buddha, what does that mean? Well, it means there's this dude Buddha, right? And so he had this experience of enlightenment many years ago. And a big part of Buddhism is that all experiences of enlightenment are in many ways the same. And so taking refuge in the Buddha means through this other guy's experience, I'm confident that I will also experience enlightenment if I follow the same principles of good sila, good samadhi, good panya, and if I devote myself to this path which he has established. That is why Gautama the Buddha is regarded as the highest Buddha. You know, there are a lot of Buddhas. There's actually an infinite number of Buddhas, but the highest Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, lived about 2,500 years ago in India, and so he discovered this path, basically, called the Dharma, which I'll come to in a sec. And that's why he's kind of the high Buddha, because he taught this to everyone and rediscovered what it means to be enlightened in what I guess you could vaguely call our lives. And become fully liberated and to fully liberate yourself, as he did, which is a part of taking refuge in the Buddha. You have to be the one that liberates yourself. No one else can do it for you. As the Buddha liberated himself, no one else could do it for him. I mentioned before the Dharma that the Buddha discovered. Dharma is vaguely translated as law or nature, or actually wheel, I think. So what the Dharma is like the teachings of the Buddha, and these teachings are that the law of nature is in such a way that all creatures suffer until they realize they don't have to, and that's when they can begin to practice equanimity and tranquility and all these things and move towards the not suffering aspects. I think I mentioned before a lot of Buddhist ideas in this, but not actually a sectarian thing. You know, you can be whatever religion you want. And the reason for this is because the Dharma is not a Buddhist principle. I mean, it's maybe a Buddhist name and it was conveyed by the Buddha, but it's a universal law is the idea. You know, it doesn't just apply to Buddhists that you suffer and that you can escape the suffering. No, it applies to every single human. And that's kind of the point. So that's what the Dharma is anyway. And so you take refuge in the Dharma probably more so than the other two gems because it's what will directly, through your own experience, be what saves you. By practicing and by having faith that, you know, this is the right path or whatever. So the third gem, the Sangha, this is the quality of a person. So I was reading about this before the course, and I think they put it really well. They say, what gets you through the course is only your good qualities. You know, if you want to be negative and do this and that, I mean, I guess it's kind of intuitive, but if you want to be negative, it will not help you. It's as simple as that. But by struggling through all this stuff, you kind of discover, you know, I discovered immense determination within myself. And that was like probably the quality that I appreciated in myself the most during these 10 days, because that's really what got me through the thing. But, you know, everyone has different qualities. Sangha is the quality of a person to follow and walk the path towards enlightenment and to swim across the sea of ignorance and reach the other shore of nirvana, you know? So yeah, that's kind of what the course is about, how the course goes. I guess that's why you follow precepts and develop your mind, and from that develops wisdom. And then the wisdom helps you develop your mind more, and it all kind of supports itself, supports its lifestyle. Why do a course like this? That's kind of the next section of our talk. Actually, take a couple mindful breaths as we're doing this. If you notice any physical sensations arise, just observe them. Observe breath going in, breath going out, and see how you're feeling right now. Take a second. I should also kind of read a moment. I have like pages on pages of notes here. Oh man, I could talk about this stuff forever. But yeah. Breath going in, breath going out. Left nostril, right nostril, long, short. What does it feel like? What does it feel like to breathe? Pay attention to it as much as you can. Okay, so why do a course like this? What do you learn? So Vipassana is vaguely translated as insight meditation too, so naturally it gives you some insight. And generally this is thought of as insight into the true nature of reality, whatever that means, right? But that's kind of how a lot of people think of it. So probably something useful to learn. A lot of it's about the nature of suffering and that sort of thing. But following my notes, the first thing you learn when you go to a course like this is that it's really hard. I mean, you don't just meditate 12 hours a day. You know, like, you live your life and then all of a sudden you show up at this place, you can't talk to anyone, you can't, you know, the food is oatmeal and like vegetarian stuff, and your mind is instantly overloaded. It's like, you know? So that's kind of the first thing you notice, that it's really hard. Your mind really resists practicing for those first like 3-4 days. Your mind just doesn't want to meditate that much. It resists so hard because it's not something you do in your day-to-day life, and all of a sudden you're trying to do it for like 12 hours a day and barely sleep, get up at 4, like, oh, come on, man, it sounds awful. So it is hard, but it is worthwhile. Don't let me deter you. The other thing you notice very quickly is just how crazy you actually are, because your mind, you know, you'll try to focus it, breath going in, breath going out, and then you do all these other meditations on the breath and, you know, sensations and stuff, and your mind is just going, blah, blah, you know, it just goes everywhere. Your mind does all this other stuff, and it just doesn't want to cooperate with you. It just wants to just do that for a while. So that's part of why you would do a course like this. Because you learn just how freaking crazy your mind is already going and how fast your wheels are spinning all the time, which is a big part of why you suffer. So when you're thinking about true nature of reality and like this is why people suffer, etc., that's a big thing. You need to, that's actually kind of what samadhi vaguely applies to also, is mastery over the mind is developed when you focus the mind repeatedly, and eventually train it to not wander so much. You know, you don't get as distracted. Your mind will wander for 1 minute instead of 5, you know, just that sort of thing. That's what mastery of the mind actually means, and that's something you can practice through something like meditation, Vipassana, or Anapana, or otherwise. So Vipassana, I mentioned before, is a quote-unquote technique to eradicate suffering. How? Well, I'll tell you. There's some theory in here, but the idea is that all suffering is based on 3 things. First thing is ignorance, which is pretty widespread in today. I can't think of anyone that's not ignorant that I know. Myself included. I mean, everyone is ignorant on some level, unless they're fully enlightened. And I don't think I know anyone that's fully enlightened. So, we're all ignorant in each of our own ways, but it's important to notice this. You know, that's a big part of why we suffer. The other 2, which are probably more important for the means of this, craving and aversion. And going a little deeper into the theory, your mind has a couple different parts, and so you're constantly feeling sensations, and so these sensations you won't react to with ignorance most of the time, because then you just won't feel it. But you'll react with craving. If it's a good sensation, you want more of this. Oh, this is good, I like this, you know. Or you'll say, oh, that's bad, it's painful, you know, and react with aversion. And so this is a big part of suffering, because if you let yourself be guided by the sensations and react to them in this way, then you're just bound to be disappointed frequently, because the nature of all sensations is the same. And that nature is to rise and then to pass away. No sensation is permanent. And that's a big part of why you do a course like this. It's to gain insight into the nature of all sensation as being impermanent. The word for it is anicca, which means changing. You're constantly changing, and you're constantly observing the change and gaining your wisdom from that. And so this law of impermanence is like very central in something like Buddhism, because It's like, stop clinging to these good feelings, or stop trying to throw away these bad feelings. Just feel them. It's as simple as that. That's what you're practicing these 10 days, that's what you're developing, and that's where your wisdom comes from. And so because of this, the goal of the course is to practice and develop equanimity. So a couple people I was talking to about this, they didn't know what equanimity meant. Equanimity is basically when you don't react. So you feel something, but it could be the worst pain in the world, but you don't think it's bad. Or it could be the most pleasant thing you've ever felt, but you don't think, oh, that's good. You just remain flat. Perfectly equanimous, and you don't react. You just maintain that equanimity. Because the point is, you go live your life after this course, and, good and bad stuff happens all the time. It's part of life, it's, what can you do? But you don't have to react to it in a good or bad way, because that is why you suffer, is the point. So to do this, and to practice equanimity, the first thing you need to do is to stop reacting to things at the surface level. So you feel sensation, and so much of the time, your first reaction will be a thought. And your thought will be, oh, yes, or oh, no. And you'll get so wrapped up in thoughts so fast, because it's all reaction, it all just happens, your mind just goes. And this is kind of the beginning of the problem, because this is all surface level, and surface level constantly changing. So you feel something good, you're reacting. Something else happens, you're reacting. It's just this endless cycle of reacting with craving and aversion, and so that's exactly the cause of suffering that I was mentioning like a minute ago. So to go beneath the surface level, you need to put in some serious work. You develop a meditation practice, you go on a retreat, you do this and that. You also have to work with yourself. You have to do what works for you, yeah. But if you don't want to do any work at all, that's ignorance. That's the other cause of suffering. If you think it's just going to go away, then you're mistaken. So you have to go deeper than the surface level. That's why you develop something like samadhi. You develop concentration, because then you can go deeper into the mind. The sensations emerge from there on a deeper level. Old reaction patterns come to the surface. Old habits come to the surface. Old all that stuff just comes to the surface, and you have to react with you'll either suffer if you crave it or feel aversion to it, or you can just be rock solid, be equanimous, not react. And so this is a very difficult practice, because the cravings and the pain become extremely severe pretty quickly as you go deeper into the mind. But that's a good sign, because it means you're purifying yourself on a subsurface level. It means you're really going in there, and these really ingrained habit patterns just manifest as very strong sensations, and you just have to sit there through them, and sit there through them, and sit there through them. And if you do, they'll go away, they'll leave you. But if you, say your pain in your right leg is awful, because this really strong ingrained habit pattern is coming out of you, well, if you think the pain is horrible, maybe you'll move your leg, and then it won't get released. So you really have to push yourself because of this, because you have to push yourself through every aspect of everything deep in the mind to really let it go and to be, rock solid through it all. And this is something that, you are allowed to fail. I failed really hard repeatedly before I even began to understand that I should remain equanimous to all this stuff. It breaks you. It's awful. I mean, the first 5 days I would just sit through ridiculous pain and cry at random times and all that. but it's because you're going deeper into your mind, and this is what you're finding. You're finding, no surprise, you're fucking crazy. Pardon my French. Like, people are literally insane because we have deeply ingrained within us, this is a good sensation and I will feel good because of it and I will crave it. And that's bad. That's why you suffer. That's why you have to get rid of it. Same with pain. Like, you go deep within your mind and your mind says, okay, pain is bad. If I feel pain, I gotta move, or I gotta, instead of just sitting with it. We live in this world where people will not sit with their own emotions, and that is the problem. That is not the solution. And so if you cut the deepest root, as the Buddha called it, only then will you become fully liberated. This is why you do Vipassana instead of other forms of meditation, like Anapana. Vipassana takes you deeply into the body and lets you cut these roots individually. Whereas Anapana is like, oh, I'm just focused on the breath, I'm just focused on the breath. But you won't just all of a sudden feel ridiculous pain in your nose. That's not how it happens. Vipassana, you're paying very much attention to the sensations of the body and trying your best to not move because of them. And that's what liberates these old reactions and habit patterns that you have. And only then, through this technique, you can through other techniques, but only then, once you've cut the deepest root and you've cut really all the roots of these reaction patterns and habit patterns, only then can you become fully liberated. If the root is still there, you'll still suffer. If you still have any habit pattern in which you cling to craving or you feel pain and try to brush it away, then you're not going to become fully liberated, because that's not the point. And you probably have some idea of what fully liberated means. And you think of someone like the Buddha, you crave nothing. You have no self, for example, the ego death. Because you stop reacting to life and all of these things that are happening and saying this is good, this is bad, and you start reacting to just the fact that you are alive. And that is very pleasant once you get to that level, because you can appreciate that at pretty much any time that you're alive. One step on the path towards liberation, another good reason to practice Vipassana over other techniques, is you need to constantly be feeling sensations in every single part of the body. That's the only way, because if you're not, then you're not always aware of every single part of what's rising and falling, what's going and coming. So these things are very important. And so the analogy that the teacher gave is that when you do a course like this, sorry, I went on a long tangent there. We're going to come back. When you're doing a course like this, the analogy that he gave is that you're performing an operation on your own mind, open brain surgery, basically. You're the surgeon, you're the patient, there's no anesthesia, and if you mess up, it's gonna hurt. Because if you lose the balance of the mind, if you lose the equanimity towards these sensations, that's when pain leads to suffering. And that's when, craving leads to suffering as well. So you need to be very, very careful as you kind of, go in there and try to remain equanimous as best you can. And the thing is, you're the surgeon too. You must do the work. No one else can, the Buddha isn't going to take a scalpel and pull out all the bad stuff from your head. No, it's got to be you. There's no, don't be ridiculous. So much of this is psychosomatic too. So, for example, one of the things that got me really into meditation was because I felt really depressed, and that's kind of a psychosomatic thing. Sure, you could make arguments about chemical imbalance in the brain, but if you ever want to be cured from it, it's the mindset. Who gives a shit about the chemistry? And that's why you must do the work, and you must be responsible for your own enlightenment. And no one else can do it for you. So that's why it's important to do the work. Another important aspect of Dharma is that you see the benefits of living this way within this lifetime pretty quickly. Over the 10 days, I feel amazing, You let go of what causes you to suffer, and you stop suffering. It's as simple as that. And as you go in, you find there's a lot of stuff in there that causes you to suffer, but that's why it's a long, long path. But it's important to walk the path and to see the path and to be willing to do the work, And only you can do it. And the thing is, I mentioned before, in 10 days you won't become enlightened, but you'll learn what the path is, and you'll learn this really good technique for walking on this path towards, living suffering free. And this is wisdom that occurs at the experiential level. Super important point. I mentioned before, like, you can read about the benefits of meditation, or you can hear some smart guy talk about the benefits of meditation. And I don't consider myself a smart guy. Don't listen to me. What you need to do if you want to experience the benefits of meditation is not read about it. It's not to listen to some smart guy. It's to go meditate. It's as simple as that. And so if you do something like this retreat, like, it's on the experiential level that you're going through all this stuff, that you're literally watching yourself cut the pain roots within your mind and letting go of things. And that's why these retreats are so worthwhile. You know, you are doing the work and you feel the benefit of doing the work. And it happens on the experiential level, not the intellectual level, not the I just read about it level. That's probably one of the most important points in this whole shebang that I'm doing here. Yeah. So essentially, you do a course like this to begin learning about your own suffering and to purify it and begin to purify it and to gain wisdom from this. And I'm just being mindful of the time here, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'll go through one small section and then we'll do this again tomorrow or something. I'll put out a time. I'm going away this weekend, so I think it does have to be tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll do this later. I don't know. But, also, I can see a couple people have tuned in. I don't know who it is, but whatever. But if you comment, if you have any questions, like, I'm all ears. I can see it. I can talk to you and, you know, or text me or, you know, let me know what you think, you know, hi. Okay, yeah, so going back. So what is the wisdom that you gain from this kind of course? It's this experiential wisdom that craving and aversion are the cause of suffering. And you begin to realize this very strongly. I certainly began to realize this very strongly. Like, you spend 5 days there and your mind's doing this, blah, blah, blah. And there's no clarity, but you're still kind of obsessed with the content of the mind. And that is actually, you would think, my expectation going in was that, you know, I'm going in to purify my mind. I'm going to think some really deep thoughts. No, actually. The manifestation is physical. The manifestation does not occur in the mind, because if it's just mind stuff is as impermanent as the sensations themselves. You don't let go of thoughts in the same way that you let pain just fall out of you and you sit there, you know? So when you're cutting these roots, it's not like thoughts are coming out. So it's really funny, like, I feel so much better after doing this course, but I couldn't tell you why. You know, I just feel a lot less pain. I feel a lot less craving. I feel a lot less desire to crave, and I feel a lot less aversion to suffering and pain and stuff, you know, and that's what's important. I'm much more appreciative of just the sensations as they are, and, like, here I am, like, talking on Facebook Live to a bunch of people and playing some guitar. Playing guitar has been so much fun since coming back, too. I love this. I love this thing. Okay, yeah, so what is the wisdom? Craving and aversion cause suffering. You just become more aware of the craving and aversion as they're occurring, and you become more aware of your sensations, and this makes you more aware of just the nature of suffering as it occurs for you within the framework of the body. You know, this sensation arises and your mind starts going blah, 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 and that's what causes suffering. And you begin to realize this by observing yourself deeply and by kind of going in deeply into the mind, and, like, the sensations become really strong, and the only way through it is to cut the root by being equanimous and not by reacting. So you sit through some pretty incredible pain before you realize that if I just let the pain be, it'll be fine. You know, the teacher always kept saying, you know, people would go up to him with questions like, oh, it hurts so much to, you know, sit cross-legged for an hour and not move an inch. And it hurts, like, so much. Don't get me wrong. But the pain is inevitable, but the suffering is optional. And if you just observe it, what the teacher would always say is, did it kill you? No. You should have sat through it. You should have sat through it. You know, if it doesn't kill you, you should just remain equanimous. Just let it be. Just leave it. Yeah, okay. And the other thing, from the wisdom I mentioned before, you can begin to experience the benefits of this practice especially if you do something like a 10-day retreat. And all this goes to say that it teaches you about the Dhamma, the law of nature, that craving and aversion are what lead to suffering, that ignorance leads to suffering, and that this law of nature is that all beings kind of have to learn that suffering is in this way. And when I say all beings have to learn, this is kind of where reincarnation comes in. Like, if people don't realize this in their lifetime, then it'll carry over into the next lifetime, and they'll suffer more. And this is kind of where the Buddhism, if you don't believe in reincarnation, this won't make any sense. But if you do, like, say you don't realize that this is how suffering works within this lifetime, your habit patterns will reincarnate. But if you do free yourself, completely liberate yourself within this lifetime and escape suffering, then you won't reincarnate. You'll actually die when you die. Which, in some theologies, that's like awful. People want to live forever. But in Buddhism, you just want to die, man. Like, life is suffering. This is awful. There's all this stuff going on, and I have to react to it. Then my nature is to react to it and to feel this craving and this aversion, and it's so impermanent is the problem. Like, something good happens, oh, good. Something bad happens, oh, bad. And then it's gone, and you're like, oh, well, huh? People cling to these feelings, where the enlightened person will just, good thing has happened. Bad thing has happened. It's all the same. It's all the same. Because you've gone around your mind in such a way that you won't crave, you won't cling, and you won't react badly. And you won't feel pain just because something is painful. You won't feel suffering just because something is painful. And so with this knowledge and wisdom, you can walk the path towards ultimate liberation. A big thing in Buddhism is that all creatures are Buddha nature. Meaning that in this lifetime or the next, or the millions after that, eventually you become enlightened, because this is the law of nature. Even if it's not this lifetime, eventually you'll realize that this is the nature of suffering, this is the nature of craving, of aversion, this is how it works, and eventually you will free yourself. You'll become liberated. You'll cross paths with the Dharma, and you'll be like, oh, that's interesting, and go on a retreat. And then, like, oh, this is how it works. And then you begin to walk the path. Or maybe not. You never know. And so, to conclude this section, the Buddha said that you must develop 10 qualities, or parami, they're called. And so, to reach enlightenment. And so, to kind of conclude on why you do a course like this, you can work on every single one of these qualities, and that will help you live, good sila, good lifestyle, good samadhi, good mastery of the mind, and those will develop panya within you, or wisdom. And so then you just grow mentally, emotionally, And so those 10 qualities I haven't written down. First one is that you renounce. So you renounce the path of suffering, you renounce the path of, like, craving and this and that you know that you have been partaking in for a long time. Like, you have to renounce it if you want to get past it. Second quality, morality, sila, lifestyle. I've kind of talked about that. Third quality, effort. So you have to be willing to put forth the effort if you want to help yourself. Go figure, right? But enlightenment doesn't just happen to people. You have to put in serious effort. Fourth quality, tolerance. So you have to be tolerant of all the ignorant, silly people that live in this world that aren't putting forth that effort. And this goes closely with compassion, which is a later one. But, say you're, like, meditating in this big hall with 150 people, and one dude over here sneezes, and this guy coughs, and, but you maintain your equanimity. That's the important thing. Because you have to tolerate other people, like, doing this and that, and, like, there's a lot of things in this life that will try to kick your focus, but you have to tolerate them and not get mad, because the second you start being negative you just lose the balance of your mind. Fifth quality, truthfulness. So again, don't lie. The Buddhists firmly believe that lying hurts you more than whoever you're lying to, because it's just the lifestyle aspect of it. You shouldn't lie. You should always tell the truth, even when you lie. If you've seen Scarface, you might get that. I always tell the truth, even when I lie. Oh, Scarface. Tony Montana. Sixth quality, strong determination. The teacher made a hilarious joke about this at one point. So we had these sittings starting on day 4 where the whole hour, it's basically a rule that you can't open your eyes, you can't open your hands, and you can't open your legs. And this is when it gets really painful. Because up until then you can kind of like, adjust your posture. But these are sittings of strong determination, so you should have strong determination. I'm not going to open my eyes, hands, or legs. And so the teacher makes this joke, like, you must be like Buddha. The Buddha sat down under a tree one night and said, I will not move my posture until I have become enlightened. He's sitting full lotus, which is extremely painful. But he says, I will not move an inch. I don't even give a shit. My bones can fall apart if they want, but I will not move an inch until I've become fully enlightened. And he sat there for like 3 days or something like that. And he didn't move. And the joke is, he didn't sit down and like 10 minutes later, oh, no, hang on, I gotta itch. That's not what the Buddha did. He sat there and he didn't move for however long. And that's what strong determination is. You have to be determined that whatever comes, you will not lose balance of your mind. And of course, this takes a lot of effort and a lot of practice. But it's something to develop. Seventh quality, wisdom. We've kind of talked about that. I'll skip it. Eighth quality, equanimity. Also kind of talked about that. Non-reaction. You want to cultivate this habit of yourself to not react to things. It's as simple as that. Nothing is good. Nothing is bad. I'm just alive, and that's great. Like what else is there? Yeah. Okay. Ninth quality, compassion / selfless love. On anyone's path to enlightenment, they're bound to have what's called ego death, and they'll lose their self. They'll realize that I am not separate from you and from you. You are one with all humans and all nature and all that. And so if you have problems with people, you're having problems with yourself. This is what compassion and selfless love are all about. Easier said than done, but the ultimate goal is to express compassion unconditionally towards everyone and everything, And that's kind of a high goal, you would think, for a while, but it's like all these qualities, it's something you practice, and it's something you develop. And then the last 10th quality is generosity / donation. And this kind of goes with the selfless love. In the Buddhist world, or if really in any world, if you want to become enlightened, it also means you never take more than you need, because why would you need more? You just give it away to people who need it more than you, is kind of the point. And the feeling that gives you is extremely pleasant, being able to give everything that you don't need is very important. Okay, and I have one more thing written here. Oh yeah, so all / most of these qualities are developed through equanimity and tranquility while you purify the mind. And again, this isn't something that happens overnight, isn't something that happens in 10 days, but it's important to be mindful that these are things that I should be developing in my life and working towards. These are good qualities to have, and that and that will help me move towards enlightenment. And if I want to become enlightened, these are qualities that I have to develop. Even if you don't believe in Buddhism, you'll probably find this to be true, because while Buddhism is a religion, it's meant to be founded on universal laws. It's a religion because there's kind of a path that you could follow, and there's books you can read and whatever. But that's not the point. The point is that it's founded on a universal law that you basically make good in the world. That helps you and it helps the world, and that's great because the world is you and you are the world. And this is why things like compassion are important and all that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there because I have something in a little while. I definitely have a lot more to talk about in here. Trying to think of what my schedule is for tomorrow. I'm gonna probably, tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Colorado time, this discussion will continue. Laying my foot down, 5:30 p.m. in Colorado. So tune in again if you'd like to hear the rest. So the rest of what I'm going to talk about is the meditation technique itself, go more into detail on like this is how the course is run, and like what to do, basically, what you do, and all that. And then last but not least, I'll talk about my own personal experience in the course, things I learned, things I experienced, a lot of pain, a lot of pain, but you know, I benefit from it. I feel much better now for having released it. So yeah, that's kind of all I got then. Thank you so much for tuning in. You kept this fun. I mean, I was gonna do this anyway, but you know, I really like sharing this kind of stuff. If anyone has any questions, do ask or text or whatever. A big part of the Dharma is it should be clear. You know, there shouldn't be any confusion that, oh, should I do this or this to get to the right place? There should never be any confusion, because why should there be? You know that. So if you have any questions, I'm all ears. I've been really busy, so I can't promise I'll get back to you like quickly. I'm also really resisting the use of technology in my life right now because it is extremely unpleasant, I've found. But all the same, if you text me or message me, I'll eventually get back to you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. 5:30 Colorado time is like 45 minutes from now. So that's when this will be tomorrow. Same place, same time. Yeah. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And yeah. So, yeah.